Welcome to Mean Age Daydream with me, Brian McWilliams, where we're going to be making some jokes, laughing out at broken world, but also laying out the philosophy for the future, how we can fix this mess we're in and have a great time doing it all with a Mean Age Daydream. Welcome, everybody, to Mean Age Daydream. I am Brian McWilliams, your bald and beautiful host. I think we're going to get rid of the intro words in that opening and just play the song. Just a nice song. What do you think about that? Because I'm also thinking about maybe starting this up in a separate feed that's like just a broader politics show without saying the title of the episode and seeing, just throwing it out there into the world and seeing what the response is. But these are all things that don't concern you, the viewer and listener. Welcome to the show. This will be a regular show, not a little shorty, not a little smoky. Little delicious Pepperidge Farm smoky sausage. No, we're going to be a full show here. And now that we're finally past the holiday season and my children are finally out of the house, thank God. Thank God for that. God. But it's odd today in California, where I still live, in the Los Angeles area. Those of you watching might see like my eyes are all puffed up today, which is really bizarre. And I think it's this crazy winds. Like we have these unbelievable windstorms coming in. And my wife and I were laughing at a public service announcement and like a news story that said that there was life-threatening winds coming in. Now, that's like 35 miles per hour. We're not getting hurricanes. We're not getting typhoons. None of that's happening. We're not getting tornadoes yet. The liberal media here has to always hype everything up to the nth degree. And I'm sure even though it's the same Santa Ana winds that always come in every year, it'll be blamed on climate change. That much I can assure you. But I think because the allergies and the pollen's, like I woke up today and my whole face is swollen up. I took like Claritin. I'm popping anti-allergy pills. I'm putting creams and salves on it. I sacrificed a goat in the backyard, which is good because the gardener came today, so I didn't have to worry about cleaning that up. But it's very unpleasant. Like I still am blurry out of one eye. So anyway, that's what I'm dealing with. That's why it looks like my eyes are all crazy. And sometimes you just got to roll with the punches. But that's the dedication I have to you, the viewer. So let's talk about some things. There's a lot going on. Number one is, as the episode title might indicate, the old Zuck, Marky the Zuck, has decided that he no longer wants censorship, that he no longer is in favor of the fact checkers. And by the way, you can fact check your wallet by going and seeing if you are a member of our Patreon, patreon.com/Lions of Liberty, or our locals, lionsofliberty.locals.com. Fact check your wallet. See if maybe you have an extra $5-10 to throw at your old friend Brian here, because we do appreciate that. But Zuckerberg did this whole speech, and I'm going to share just a tidbit of it. Let me bring this up so you guys can see what the old Zucky said. But Zuckerberg went out there and essentially, well, actually, I'm not going to play it. Why am I going to play it? Yeah, I'll describe it to you rather than playing his deadpan, fish staring up at you from the beachfront as it gapes with its mouth open, weird ass Zuck stare and way of talking. He basically said that they made mistakes, that they had been encouraged to censor by our government, that they had adopted that censorship mantra, and that while, yes, there are dangers in the world, such as terrorism, such as child sex trafficking and other, heinous things, that the balance there had been thrown off, and that Facebook and Instagram were going to be embracing free speech, open dialogue, and that they were going to be getting rid of a lot of the censorship, particularly, as I mentioned, fact checkers. Now, there's a hilarious New York Times article, which I retweeted on my Twitter feed at Brian McWilliams, and also from LP National's account, because it's worth retweeting that the New York Times has a article headline that says, Meta says fact checkers were the problem. Fact checkers rule that false. To which Kyle Mann, the editor of the Babylon Bee, said, whoever wrote this headline, I want to offer you a job immediately. And he's right. It's one of the most ridiculous things I've ever read. The New York Times is so in the bag for the censorship and for the censorship industrial complex. And by the way, Zuckerberg also called that out and said, look, big government, big media are both calling for this. Big media especially is calling for censorship because they want to control the narrative, because they know where their money is, they know where their beds are laid, and also because big media is hemorrhaging money. As people have lost complete faith in media because of outlets like X that allow people to point out, to fact check in real time, to have a comments. And by the way, Zuckerberg also said Facebook was going to have a system similar to X in that they're going to allow a public notes, a community notes style fact checking system to exist on there rather than this top down system they deployed before. But the mainstream media has watched as, people just stop believing them because lie after lie after lie was easily exposed. And especially coming out of COVID, coming out of Ukraine war propaganda being demonetized and crushed, and coming out of this entire era where anything questioning multiple narratives, starting with the election, right? That's how this all began. And I did a whole episode on this and has been exposed in the Twitter files by Matt Tiabi and others. This censorship industrial complex was created under the guise, the false premise that no one could discuss this election because it was going to somehow cause such a rift in the country. And we had to correct the narrative on this. We have to tell the truth, even though the truth they told was nonsense. So they created this entire top-down system, starting with the Stanford Internet Observatory, working with institutions in the United Kingdom and other of the Five Eyes countries, that essentially was so imbued into the fabric of our international spying organizations, of the FBI, of organizations like the CIA, the NSA, that everything in American life was essentially observed and then tried to be censored, tried to be guided, and was made malleable to the whims of the government. And this is, by the way, by intent. There was government documentation that was released essentially saying that the perception of Americans, like the American mind, was also something that had to be controlled because this was a threat to the country. Well, no shit. Oh shit, it's a threat to the country if people are allowed to think, if people are allowed to act, if people are allowed to talk to each other and actually say what they think, what they feel, and what they observe in reality when it's not curated by government. So this article from the New York Times, again, one of the biggest corporate media shill outlets that exists out there, and also, of course, very left-wing shill outlet, writes this article saying that the fact checkers ruled that they were not to blame. Now, a review of the fact-checking organizations would show you that all of these organizations are, number one, ultra left-wing. Number two, are typically funded by the government, so they know exactly where they're going to be falling, right? Any fact check that is funded by the government or funded by a series of government organizations, or say somebody like George Soros, who we're going to get to in just a bit, and his presidential Medal of Freedom nonsense, it's pretty obvious where they're going to fall, where the reality, where the fact-checking blade is going to come down and what they're going to cut and what they're going to censor, because it's all going to go along with the same top-down narrative that the government is pushing. So when you see him getting rid of fact checkers, what he's doing is actually getting rid of a government organization, because every single one of these organizations was in bed with the government, including, yes, the Stanford Internet Observatory. Sounds innocuous on its surface, right? Oh, they're Stanford. It's a university. It's well respected. It's just observing. No. In bed with the government, working hand in hand with the government on every step of the way. So to eliminate the fact checkers and open this up to public discourse is providing a far more valuable service. And you see this on X and the way Community Notes works. Community Notes is fast, effective, and I would say objective, because you do have people from different sides posting different content there to put things into context. And context is what we miss from everyday conversation, as well as what the government tries to remove from us when they push out this bullshit that they constantly want us to believe. So the question now that I've seen people raise, despite the fact that empirically, Zuckerberg getting rid of censors, or at least claiming to, we'll see what it ends up looking like, but getting rid of fact checkers, getting rid of censors, empirically is a good thing. But people are saying, well, and I've seen this again in response to some posts I put out there and some of the stuff on the national platform. People are saying, well, why should we give him a pass? Isn't he just an opportunist, right? Because he was for censorship when it benefited Facebook and the government was allowing them to control the sandbox, and he was bowing to their whims, and Facebook was making money. I still don't know how Facebook's making money, but apparently they are, and people are buying their stock perplexing. But he was happy to bend the knee when it suited him. And only recently has he come around to this techno-libertarian philosophy, even calling himself a libertarian, going thus far. And I think part of that is because he sees Elon Musk and he sees the popularity of Musk and what Musk has done to change dialogue and discourse and how it's a great good for society. So part of that, I think, is a little bit of jealousy, wanting to maintain that status and be as cool as Elon. But even if it's not, even if it simply is opportunism, even if it's not some sort of awakening that Zuckerberg has had. And by the way, another side tangent here on Zuckerberg. I've expressed this before, and I'll say it again. Let's not discount the fact that maybe it is opportunism, maybe it's a true awakening, or maybe it is simply self-protection. Because we see what's going on the international stage when it comes to censorship of content, when it comes to demonetization of companies, when it comes to control of what companies can and can't do, and the targeting of Elon Musk, right? Look at how many government organizations. I went through the chart of them. There were like 15 different government organizations which had been politically attack dog sicked upon Elon Musk companies in response to his pushback against the government narrative, in response to his opening up X to free speech. You look on the international stage where Brazil is saying, well, we're not gonna cut off all your funds for X. Same thing with like the UK, same thing with, I think Australia actually got slapped down, as did Ireland. But these countries are making this effort to control speech and to crack down on technology. I mean, look at the fucking CEO, what was it, Signal or Telegram? One of the two of them, the Frenchman, was arrested. So partially, I think this is also Zuckerberg saying, I need to protect myself. And the best way to protect myself is to get the public on my side and defend me as an international force for good. At least here in America, a force for good, being an American citizen, they're going to stand up. They're going to demand that I get released if something comes after me. So I need to protect myself with a barrier of public goodwill. Not a bad idea. But even if that's not it, even if this is simply Zuckerberg being an opportunist, even if this is just him saying, well, let me put my finger in the air and see which way the wind's blowing. Because right now the wind is blowing towards free speech, anti-censorship, anti-government, free thinking, free interaction, free markets. If that's where he's putting his finger up and that's where the wind's blowing, and he says, financially, this is the best option for me if I'm going to keep Facebook and Instagram relevant, well, then that is fucking amazing, isn't it? In fact, I would say that's the best possible outcome, because that means we are winning. That means culturally, politically, philosophically, that America has come around and realized where we are at. After COVID, after this Ukraine spending nonsense, after the shit with Israel and everything going on there and trying to control the narrative until we can see the damage being done. All of this has led Americans to say, we're being lied to at all times. We're being censored. We're being controlled. What they're telling us is a lie, and we're seeing it in real time. If Zuckerberg's saying the market is demanding that I change Facebook, and if I'm going to stay relevant, if I'm going to stay competitive in the marketplace, I goddamn better allow free speech. I better knock this fact-checking shit off. I better allow people to permissibly discuss whatever they want and stop crushing algorithmically anything that doesn't go along with the government narrative, or else I'm going to go tanking because Facebook's not going to make it and Instagram's going to follow, toot sweet. Well, that's amazing. It's amazing. Celebrate that fact. It doesn't matter what the reason he's doing it is, but the best possible reason is that the market is saying this is what you're going to do. If you're going to play the game, if you want to be relevant, if you want to be profitable, you better let us fucking talk. Get out of the way. And I'm telling you, 2025 is going to be a hell of a year. You know, I was thinking about doing a projection show on what's going to happen in 2025, and I'm going to have Robbie the Fire Bernstein on very soon. I was trying to get him before the year, but he was busy doing, I don't know, Jew things. So I'm going to have him on very soon, within the next couple of weeks. I got to work out the timing with him. But maybe that's a good topic for a show with Robbie, is what's going to happen in 2025? Like, what are our grand predictions? Because I'm predicting that things are only going to get better. I'm predicting that, yes, it is going to be a difference when Trump gets in there, and it is going to see you're going to see a big difference with the influence of Musk and Ramaswamy. And yes, we talked about the Ramaswamy thing and H-1B visas last episode, so you can go back and listen to that if you want. But I think that you're going to see a change in the way we go about discourse. You're going to see a change in the way that government transparency operates. You're going to see a change in the way our economics are rolling out. I think you're going to continue to see Bitcoin become far more relevant and have a legitimate economy that can operate outside of the fiat dollar. I'm excited. I think you're going to see an end to the Ukraine war pretty quickly as well. Excited by that, even though the Biden administration continues to pump money into that shit fuck of a country, that quagmire. Sorry, I shouldn't say shit fuck of a country. I don't want to crap on Ukraine as a whole, nor the Ukrainian people. I'm just saying, as an American, I don't want to fund it. It's a quagmire. It's ridiculous that we're even involved at this point. It only endangers us to be involved in this situation. So God bless Mark Zuckerberg for whatever reason he has for changing his position on censorship. The more interaction, the more open dialogue, the more better. And honestly, I said this before, and this is on the new, that we just launched a new lp.org website. And one of the issues pages is taking back reality, taking back truth, removing censors, removing government interference in what we perceive as reality, because that is a big battle. That is a battle that is now starting to be won by us, the people, because of X, because of Zuckerberg now capitulating to free market forces. Reality is defined not only by what you see, what you read, but also who you talk to, what they know, talking amongst your neighbors, and actually having an open discourse. Now, what's interesting, to kind of skip around a bit, and I want to talk about this George Soros Medal of, Presidential Medal of Freedom. One of the recipients for the Medal of Freedom is Denzel Washington. Now, do I think that actors should be getting a Presidential Medal of Freedom? No, I do not. I don't think it's just abominably stupid. No actor can do anything unless this actor had gone out of his way and I don't know, strapped on an M16 and freed a bunch of hostages and took back liberty. I don't know. Like what is an actor possibly going to do? And what has Denzel Washington done, for that matter, to get a Presidential Medal of Freedom? It doesn't matter. It's a pat on the head. It's like the Pulitzer Prize. It's basically a virtue signaler. You give it to your peons to say, good job, thanks for being a good soldier. But that's where it's interesting. So when I talk about, Hillary Clinton got hers for just being a pathetic shill the entire time she's been in the public eye, loyal to the elites. I already talked about Liz Cheney getting her Medal of Honor for being a shill that only is allegiant to the elites, essentially. She had to stay relevant. So she was dedicated and she's putting people over politics, right? Country over politics is what they said. No, she was dedicated to the elites. And that's why she wanted to stay in relevance and tried to stay in line with the Democrats when they were in power and tried to jump on the January 6th bandwagon and all that garbage. But Denzel Washington, oddly enough, and I have a quote pulled up here from Denzel, I was a little surprised that he got the Presidential Medal of Freedom, because Denzel, and I remember making a notice because it was so strange to hear from an actor, especially a left-wing actor, and especially a left-wing actor of color. It was so fascinating to hear him say this because it spoke out against the prevailing winds in Hollywood of screw anybody that's not a rabid leftist dick, and spoke to what I think we all are thinking and feeling. So this is Denzel Washington back in November. It says, look, it's all politics and promises unkept. Now with the information age the way it is, if anything, left, right, whatever, had better learn how to use those tools to manipulate the people. There was a great line in the first movie I did, Carbon Copy, power to the people. Yeah, they had it once. It was called The Stone Age. We're all slaves to information now. We really are. We're all slaves. So whatever you feel about the leaders, like this guy's crazy, the other one is sane, you better realize you are being manipulated by both sides, period. So go to the movies. It also says we need to unite as Americans and hold our elected officials' feet to the fire as it relates to working together. Again, interesting. the only one, I think, and like I said, I'm against actors getting the Medal of Freedom. I don't think anybody should get the Medal of Freedom in this bullshit because it's based on nothing, right? If Liz Cheney can get it, if Hillary Clinton can get it, and if George frickin' Soros can get it, it's based on nothing. But Denzel, maybe the only one. Maybe the only one I'm actually for. So Biden gives this medal out. He gives it to George Soros. Now, George Soros, of course, has been a funder of all of the most detrimental progressive policies, all the most detrimental progressive leadership that comes into office, international influence. I mean, you talk about dark money. You talk about, like, the Democrats love to talk about money in politics, right? Money ruins politics. Say, oh, get back, recall Citizens United. They love to talk about it. And yet, who does Biden give a Medal of Freedom to? The highest honor and jerk off them? George Soros. We just recalled, actually, I could say we tried to recall Gascon, who was our DA, elected here in Los Angeles, who was put into office, or I should say in LA. He was put into office, I think, well, it's got to be 4 years ago now. I think it's a 4-year run for DA, but I might be wrong. I'm trying to remember exactly what the terms are. But Soros had funded his entire campaign, pushed him into office, and he was similar to like San Francisco's DA who was recalled. And by the way, he was recalled here in Los Angeles as well, except the Democrats in charge said that the signatures weren't matched up, which was hilarious, of course, coming out of 2020 when the Democrats were saying that you weren't allowed to question elections and that how dare you want to look at signatures on ballots to make sure that they actually are authentic. And then they did the exact same thing that the GOP had been calling for during this recall election of Gascon and also for Gavin Newsom. So anyway, Gascon, though, he's one of these guys that got put in there and as pushed through by Soros and the left-wing, nutbag Democrats, zero chance that anybody that shoplifted, that was a violent homeless, that was a violent youth, that was a career criminal, that was an immigrant who had been murdering and stuff, they all got let out. During the George Floyd riots, none of these people were held in jail. They were all let go free. Everybody that destroyed the entire Santa Monica Promenade area, doing billions of dollars in damage, let free. Nobody's holding anybody. This was the top-down mandate. It made LA into a complete shithole. It's only now starting to recover. It's only now to the point where we're getting some of the homeless under control. Because, basically the people said, this is the number one issue. You better fix it. And Democrats had to listen because there was a chance that you actually were going to get Republican leadership in there if they didn't listen. So only now it's starting to get cleaned up. California, by I think an 80% margin, voted to repeal a law that essentially allowed shoplifting up to $900 to happen. And this led to shutdowns of stores like Walgreens, Whole Foods, I believe another one like there's another big chain that pulled all its stores out of places like San Francisco and certain parts of LA because they were just getting robbed over and over and over and over again. And these garbage DAs put in by George Soros wouldn't do anything about it. So George frickin' Soros gets the Medal of Freedom for epitomizing what dark money is, what influence of somebody that should not have any power in especially local elections exercises. And Joe Biden gives him this honor publicly in front of all of America. I mean, I can't think of anything to say except that it's the biggest double middle finger that I've ever seen a president give to a population. Literally, it would be like, if somebody fixed a horse race and then the owner of the horse goes out and brings up the mafioso who injected the horse with steroids and was like, hey, Gino, thank you for helping me win this race with this cheating horse that you injected with steroids. I love you. And gives them kisses on the cheek. And then, publicly on the stand right after the race, the mafia, the jockey, and the jerk-off owner. Well, that was Joe Biden. Joe Biden was essentially putting his mafia boss out there that rigs the fucking horse races and giving him a public award. It's perverse. And he has to know. He has to know that George Soros is hated. Even by the left, I think George Soros is hated. I mean, anybody that is that prolific in dark money, and you could say, oh, well, maybe they like what he's funding. If you do, you're the biggest hypocrite possible. And I'm not saying that the left's not full of hypocrites. They are full of hypocrites. The biggest hypocrites, in fact. living on the left, other than maybe, Republicans who are sucking dick in bathrooms and then, campaigning for anti-gay legislation. Those people are pretty big hypocrites too, but at least you get a kick out of that sometimes when they get caught. And of course, male prostitutes have to make a living. So, it's good they have in the closet Republicans to help them out. But I just couldn't believe, of all the people, George Soros. But it does go to show you, I mean, the elites of this country, the political class, live in a different world. They simply are ignorant, I think, to what's actually going on. I mean, the Kamala Harris campaign is a perfect encapsulator of how ignorant elites in both sides, GOP and I mean, the GOP seems to have at least woken up a bit, because you could look at what Trump was campaigning on, how that's actually tying into some issues Americans give a shit about. But my God, I mean, the Harris campaign, they seem to have no clue that they were going to get destroyed. Them doubling, tripling down on the worst policies. I mean, Kamala Harris had a chance, like I talked about, that bill that got recalled with 80% support in California, allowing these rampant, smash and grab affairs to happen to retailers and destroying property rights in California. She refused to comment on it. It would have been the easiest win ever. Yes, definitely bring it back, repeal it. We need some law and order. We need some property rights. We need people to feel safe. Nope. Let's double and triple down on, transing kids and medical castration of the youth. Let's double and triple down on immigration and I'm blown away by it. And then you've got these awards going out. Again, Hillary Clinton is hated. She can't even. I don't even think there's people on the left, again, that respect Hillary Clinton at this point in time, other than the elites that are going to pay her money to give stupid speeches. It's mind-boggling. And I was trying to think before, when this country was kind of at its lowest point, I was like, are we at the point where these people are just going to continue down and run us into the gully before they realize that there might just be a revolution brewing? And I think the Democrats still don't know. I just think they're completely ignorant of it. And Biden's award ceremony is completely indicative of that fact. They're more than happy to run us straight into the gutter. His support for arming Ukraine with missiles that could fire into Russia, pretty indicative of that fact too, right? So most Americans are not in favor of us having missiles fire into Ukraine or into Russia on our part, and kickstarting World War III. It's just unreal. Okay, so let's move on. Despite Biden's theatrics, Zuckerberg is capitulating to free market forces. Let's go up to Canada and talk about what's going on there, because Justin Trudeau, who of course is notably one of the Klaus Schwab World Economic Forum little darlings, was in his program. And yes, I know Javier Milei was too. I know at some point he was also involved in that. But Milei seems to have taken a different tact. Trudeau was indoctrinated through the WEF, had been groomed and brought up to be this ultra progressive, pretty boy who went out there and espoused all the progressive crap, all the claptrap garbage that you want to read in every ESG, DEI handbook. He had come to fame loudly proclaiming that he is a feminist, like as if Canada has an oppressive environment for women. And apparently that rung here too. Oh my God, feminists! Because women here are downtrodden and abused and have no chance to compete with men. Such nonsense. But stupid people will still believe it because, again, the government's lied to us about the wage gap, and Democrats have pushed this complete and total bullshit for decades now. So Justin Trudeau has been completely cratering in popularity, and for obvious reasons. I mean, Justin Trudeau had supported the war in Ukraine. Canadians don't seem to be as far in support of the Ukraine, just like we are. They don't want to be shoving more money down Ukraine's throat for a battle that's not going to be won, nor tempt fate with nuclear war. So very unpopular. Justin Trudeau, of course, also pushed through a lot of the suicide measures. Anybody can commit suicide in Canada. Here you go, kids. You're unhappy, you're depressed, you're a little retarded. Here you go. Have a needle. That's unpopular. He pushed through all these taxation policies, progressive climate policies, which we now, of course, see do nothing, have done nothing, will do nothing. But still will impact your local population through regulation and taxation. And of course, let's not forget that during COVID, Justin Trudeau and his cadre of authoritarians really led the way in many ways in shutting down countries, shutting down cities, shutting down entire state territories, masking up, denying you ability to travel, forcing you into vaccinations, and of course, removing your ability to access your money in the bank were you on the wrong side of a political argument, aka COVID. You'll recall when the truckers had their, what do you call it, protest, blockade, whatever you'd like to call that, their truck in, Justin Trudeau, against the Constitution of Canada, removed the ability for those people to access their money. That was a decision which was very unpopular at the time, even in Canada, and frankly was an abomination to everything, any quote-unquote democratic and free and open society, which was hilarious because he said this, I think, like a day after he had done this unconstitutional action, removing their ability to access funds. That move was then upheld by some liberal donk on their Supreme Court who said that the government was in their rights because of quote-unquote exceptional circumstances. I hate to break it to you, but if you have a constitution that doesn't count for shit during exceptional circumstances, you don't have a constitution. In this country, barely have a constitution. We saw that, again, during COVID. We see that with the actions of presidents and presidential executive orders nonstop. But I digress. Even that decision was then reversed and overturned. And they said, you know what? Never mind. We were wrong. This is a complete abuse of power. Sorry, guys. Peace out. So Justin Trudeau, with his cratering approval ratings and also the rise of the Conservative Party in Canada, similar to what has happened here in our last election cycle of people with sanity seeing through this liberal nonsense that doesn't work and costs the country tons of money and frankly removes freedoms from people. Well, the people in the ministry, you know, in the parliament, I guess, of Canada, they were going to vote no confidence. And it essentially came down to, hey, either resign or we're going to kick your ass out. So Trudeau, being the coward that he is, of course, chose the easy path. Rather than fight and be removed and go out a fighter, he instead, in the true World Economic Forum path, took the bitch way out. He has now formally said he is resigning, and yet he has assured us all, though, he will maintain very, very active in progressive politics. Now, I can assure you that that's true. You know how I know? Because all of the money behind it, because all of the think tanks and all of the academic groups and all the other shitheads that benefit from pushing progressive nonsense and demanding funding and conning the public into funding these things and getting government funds for that matter, well, they are going to have a position for Justin Trudeau. Just like Lori Lightfoot, the mayor of Chicago, who drove that city into the ground and oversaw the highest crime rate, I think, of any city at almost any point in the country's history, while also maintaining strict COVID lockdowns and running, of course, one of the worst educational systems in the country. Well, she went on to get a position as a teacher at Harvard. Need I say more? So Justin Trudeau, we'll see where you end up. I'm sure it's going to be a very well-paying job at a think tank, at a university, on somebody's staff as an advisor. Who knows? Maybe he'll start his own consultancy on how to be a true liberal douche. And I'm sure he's going to get paid far more money than he ever made as prime minister in Canada. Because if there's nothing more I'm assured of is that once you're a shill in politics, once you capitulate, and once you are bent the knee to the elites and you're part of that club, you never get out. They're going to take care of you for the rest of the time. You're always going to be useful to them. I mean, George Soros said it's a big club and you ain't in it. Well, this one's a small club, but we're still not in it. All right, let's wrap up here with one more thing. It's been dismaying to me to see Thomas Massie come under attack because he dared not to vote for Speaker Mike Johnson. Now, Thomas Massie, as you know, and I know, is probably one of the most, well, actually, I know factually, is one of the most principled people that's in Congress. I mean, he is unbelievably principled. He votes clearly. He states why he's voting for something. He's highly intelligent. I mean, he's got an MIT degree, a brilliant mind, a brilliant speaker, and he lays out exactly what his reasoning is for everything he does. And he has been right on virtually everything over the past 5 years. Let's not forget, Thomas Massie is on record Now it's 2025. What is it? Maybe 6 more months, right? Until the official 5-year mark when COVID was foisted upon us. Going on record in 2020 saying this entire thing, this entire COVID bailout bill, the spending, this mandatory, masking, this will go down as one of the greatest mistakes in American history. Certainly looks like he was correct, doesn't it? Even Whitney Cummings is out there mocking COVID and mocking Pfizer and everything on CNN's New Year's Eve show. Show me where Thomas Massie's been wrong about anything in the last 5 years. And yet, the most idiotic side of MAGA attacks Thomas Massie, of all people, because he dares to speak up against Mike Johnson, who has gone along with spending with all sorts of dog shit spending bills, with capitulating on different issues like the NDAA. Where was Mike Johnson then? Where was Mike Johnson demanding transparency, demanding freedoms, demanding that you rein in the authoritarian powers of the government to spy on the American population? Nowhere to be found. Thomas Massie was out there fighting for it, I can tell you that much. Mike Lee's out there fighting for it. And yet, I've seen now DC Drano and Cat Turd are in a big spat with Thomas Massie because Thomas Massie called them out as paid influencers, which I don't know if they are or not. I'm sure that they are. I mean, they're big enough that I have to say, if you're a lobbyist, you can exert influence over, obviously, congressmen, the way they vote. Would it shock anybody if there was money being spent on these online influencers by lobbyists to try to push them one way or another in regards to these types of political decisions? I mean, we know Tim Pool got paid by Russians, and I'm not even saying he knew he was getting paid Russians, but clearly the money's out there in order to push people one way or the other. And clearly, now that we've gotten out of our corporate dominance from the media perspective, online influencers are where it's at. So now you've got one of the biggest GOP MAGA conservative influencers attacking Massie. Now, the good news here is that Thomas Massie's untouchable. He just won re-election, and by a wide margin. And that's despite AIPAC spending $25 trillion to try to unseat him as the one guy in Congress that's willing to stand up and tell them to fuck themselves and to get their shitbag representative out of his office. And he's not going to wear a little pin around. So if Thomas Massie can withstand all of the forces of AIPAC, I don't think DC Drano and Cat Turd are going to make a big impact on him. But I'm telling you, it's certainly entertaining to see. And it certainly is pathetic to see all of these MAGites turn on Thomas Massie in this way. I mean, every time you think people are getting a little bit smarter in their understanding of the game, of what politics is, of what side they need to be on and how you need to examine, just like Denzel Washington saying, right? Good old Denzel. Yes, it's all information warfare, people. Despite which side you might think you're on, you still are being manipulated. You're still being lied to. And you need to think a little harder. You need to take things at more than face value. And just because shitheads on the GOP side of things or on the MAGA side of things say that Thomas Massie's a traitor for not voting for Mike Johnson, well, you got to stop and think and say, you know what? Thomas Massie's been a pretty goddamn good senator, or pretty good representative. Thomas Massie has been an amazing vocal advocate for freedom, liberty, sanity, economic restraint. For even things down to the Prime Act, being able to access meat, helping rein in factory farming and allow people to farm and sell goods across state lines on their own. These fuckers aren't even doing the base level of research into who Thomas Massie is, what he stands for. They're just adopting Cat Turd's position. If Cat Turd is defining your political reality, you might just be a lost cause. It sounded like a stupid Jack Foxworthy joke, but in all seriousness, God bless Thomas Massie, and God bless all of you. God bless us, everyone. All right, guys, thanks for listening to the show today. Of course, as I mentioned, you can go and support us, patreon.com/Lions of Liberty or lionsofliberty.locals.com. And I'm hoping to have a big announcement for you guys on a side project that I'm working on, which is a very... I'd say it's a novel game that I'm hoping to have out within the next couple months. I'm finalizing things before I go into a production on it. And with China, going to go through China. But should be fun. So hopefully I'll be able to announce that within the next couple weeks after we get this this final product off and reviewed. So I'll be talking about that soon. But if you're a gamer, keep your wallet open. All right, guys. Thanks a lot. For me, Brian McWilliams from the Lions Liberty Network and from Mean Age Daydream. Keep those electric eyes on me, babe, and keep that ray gun to my head. Later.